words. This is not getting discussed on the mainstream media. Not only are they wrong legally, but the fact that they would do this is outrageous. This is an overreaction and really nonsense. How would you react if this was your son or your daughter? It's the offense of knowing the truth. It's the offense of having an alternate worldview. Saying God bless you to someone is not a violation of the law. Welcome to the broadcast, everyone. We're glad our television studio cameras are here and are glad our television audience is with us. This is an important topic. We're talking about the situation with Israel right now, specifically President Obama's demands that Israel begin negotiation with Hamas, because Hamas is now part of the Palestinian Authority. And, Jordan, that has created quite a dilemma for Israel. Of course, Benjamin Netanyahu has already said he's not negotiating with the terrorists and he's not going back to the 67 borders.
Absolutely right. I mean, you got a situation here where a terrorist government is now part of a unity government, and it can be complicated, folks, but just think about it like this. A terrorist and a moderate let's say liberation group, as you would call it, have joined forces. They both have different agendas, different ways to get to their end goal, which is the destruction of Israel, one violent, one by what they call the right of return. But they're united now, and President Obama, instead of rebuking that unity, rebuked Israel. You know, what's interesting here is there's been a universal condemnation of this. By the way, on future broadcasts, we're going to be joined by Senator Orrin Hatch. He's got a congressional concurrent resolution that basically disagrees with everything President Obama said. So the reality is, and we're encouraged about this, as this process moves forward, the American people are speaking out in huge numbers. Do you know we've heard from, literally 30,000 people, probably by the time this airs close to 50,000 people, that are saying no to what President Obama's done. Understand also that the borders that they're talking about, when the president was in the Oval Office, in fact, let's take a listen. Let's go right inside the Oval Office right now. When Benjamin Netanyahu told the President of the United States there will be no return to the 67 borders.
Cannot go back to the 1967 lines because these lines are indefensible, because they don't take into account certain changes that have taken place on the ground, demographic changes that have taken place over the last 44 years.
Well, here's an interesting development. We're going to talk about what the Prime Minister, the British Prime Minister, had to say about this when we come back from the break. But actually, let me play. I think we should play this. You need to listen to this, folks. This is the Prime Minister of Britain, Prime Minister Cameron. Take a listen.
The Israelis need to know that America and our allies like Britain will always stand up for Israel's right to exist, right to defend herself, right to secure borders. That is absolutely vital, that the Israelis know that their security is absolutely key to us. They need to know that. But the second thing that needs to be done is the Palestinians need to know that we understand their need for dignity and for a Palestinian state, using the 67 borders as land swaps as the start point.
Interesting enough, who should the Palestinians really be blaming for this whole situation? His country, because they're the ones that set up the disaster that became the makeup of the Middle East and also Africa as well. I mean, they're really the ones to blame for the situations we have to deal with now, yet he also ready to embrace the 67 lines. President Obama started it. Look at the other international leaders.
All right, folks, I want you to go to your phones right now. Join about 40,000 people that are saying we're not going to tolerate a divided Jerusalem, rebuking the President of the United States for his action and supporting Prime Minister Netanyahu and the people of Israel. Here's the number. Sign on to that petition now, 877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255. Now, you can also go to the website at aclj.org. We've got a lot of information posted on there, including some journals from some of our team in Israel right now, from David French and others. Go to the website for that. But call now. Add your name to that petition, 877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255.
President Obama siding with the Palestinian Authority, turning his back on Israel. Unbelievable. President Obama calling Israel an occupying force, demanding that Israel revert to the 1967 borders, a move that would divide Jerusalem. What's worse, President Obama, by backing the Palestinian Authority, is backing Hamas, a terrorist organization that vows to eliminate Israel. This is not a pathway to peace, it's an assault against Israel, our most important ally. We're sending a message to President Obama. This anti-Israel adversarial tactic is unacceptable. Stand with the ACLJ in support of the nation of Israel and in opposition to President Obama's troubling new policy against Israel. Add your name to our petition now, and we'll send you 2 valuable resources: the Export DVD, a powerful look at the Middle East crisis, and a booklet on the growing threat of Sharia law. Tell President Obama it's time to stand with Israel. Call now, 1-877-989-2255 or online aclj.org.
The dream of a Jewish and democratic state cannot be fulfilled with permanent occupation.
Permanent occupation. Do you realize the President of the United States has called the State of Israel an occupying force? Why doesn't he just start calling Israel the Zionist entity? Because that's exactly the language of Hamas, of Hezbollah, of the terrorists, of Iran, calling Israel the occupier. Now, here's what's fascinating. I'm holding in my hand, and for our television audience, you're going to be able to see this. This is a concurrent resolution of the United States Senate. We'll be having in future programs Orrin Hatch is our guest, the senator who is the sponsor of this with Joe Lieberman from Connecticut. This resolution is very clear, folks, because it says that Israel's borders must be secure. It says it is the policy of the United States to support and facilitate Israel in creating and maintaining secure, recognized, and defensible borders, and it is contrary to United States policy and our national security to have the borders of Israel return to the boundaries of 1949 or 1967. Our good friend Orrin Hatch, the U.S. Senator from Utah, is putting this forward. We're backing it up. We've been working. That's why we're in Washington, folks, working on this. I've got a team in Jerusalem right now also working on the ground there. This is what the American Center for Law and Justice does. Now, we need your help on all this. We want to see this resolution passed. We want to see no divided Jerusalem, which means no return to the 67 borders, no forced negotiations with Hamas. Again, I'm going to send you the export DVD and our booklet on Sharia law, but I need you to go to your phones right now as we get ready to take your calls. Sign on to this petition supporting Israel. We're going to deliver it to Benjamin Netanyahu and the leadership of the State of Israel. We're also delivering it to the White House and letting them know what the American people's position are, which, by the way, is going to get wide bipartisan support from the United States Senate and the House. 877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255 or aclj.org. Jordan, this resolution from the Senate is probably going to pass overwhelmingly, including Republican and Democratic support here. Bipartisan, could be close to unanimous.
Yeah, I mean, and you think about it, this is a strong rebuke of President Obama. It ends with this, and it's only a couple pages. Resolved by the Senate, the House of Representatives concurring, so both the House and the Senate, that it is the policy of the United States to support and facilitate Israel in creating and maintaining a secure, recognized, and defensible borders, and it is contrary to United States policy and our national security to have the borders of Israel return to the boundaries of 1949 or 1967, a direct rebuke by President Obama that I know will get bipartisan support, like you said. Almost all of the senators, I think, you'll see maybe a couple peel off there, and same thing goes in the House of Representatives.
We're working here in Washington right now. Our offices, we would say we're across the street from the Supreme Court. It's true. We're 1 block from the United States Capitol, and you know how close we are to the United States Senate office buildings? Across the street to be able to negotiate on your behalf. Again, we want you to sign that petition, 877-989-2255. I encourage everyone to do it, and we'll send you the export DVD, 877-989-2255. Let's go right to the phones.
Sharon's calling from California on line 3. Sharon, welcome to JSECO Live.
Hi, Sharon.
I just want to say I think it's so interesting, this whole situation, because it would be like another country coming to us as America and saying, hey, you guys need to part with some of your land so that this people group can have their own country or their own nation, as if we would really just do that and give up our land.
Yeah, and here's the thing. This is interesting because, number one, what are we going to do? Solve the situation with Mexico by returning to the boundaries of the United States in 1845? No. But here's what's also significant here, and that is there's a failure to – Mexico would at least recognize the right of the United States to exist. That's not the situation with the Palestinian Authority under the control of Mahmoud Abbas, the current president, as well as now Hamas's influence. Let me play it for you. Sound bite 23. Benjamin Netanyahu, take a listen.
It's time for President Abbas to stand before his people and say, I will accept a Jewish state. Those 6 words will change history.
You know, folks, I want to ask you this question. Does anybody out there believe that we should force Israel to negotiate with someone that's calling for its destruction? I cannot imagine that for a moment. But that's exactly the position the president has put the Israelis in, although the rebuke that's coming from the Senate is going to be significant.
Let me explain to you folks the two ways that both Palestinian factions hope to destroy Israel, wipe Israel off the map. Now, they're involved in a unity government, but they still have different techniques, different ways of doing so. Hamas, you know from their charter, like Prime Minister Netanyahu said, you kill the Jews wherever you find them, you destroy Israel, you use violence, you use suicide bombers, rockets, build up a military, and this border crossing that's opened with Egypt makes it much more easier for Hamas to get weapons now, because you don't need to worry about flotillas anymore. Iran, remember, Egypt let them go through the Suez Canal with warships. They want to deliver whatever they want to Hamas now. They can, so they're going to be able to build up.
That's because it's been opened up. We need to point that out. The crossing has been open, first time in 30 years.
Yeah, that's right. And so that's been a total shift by the Egyptian government, and it just happened in the last 24 hours. Now, that's the Hamas way of destroying Israel. The Palestinian Authority way of destroying Israel, which they've made clear again they aren't willing to give up, is one, never recognize Israel as a Jewish state at the international level. So you may recognize Israel at some point, the other side of the Palestinian faction, but never as a Jewish state. The second, and President Mahmoud Abbas, who's the one we think we can support, and the moderate there, so-called moderate there, will not give up the right of return. What does the right of return mean? Anyone with Palestinian blood, so you think about your own heritage, all of us in America, anyone with Palestinian blood in their family line, they may never have lived there, their parents may never have lived there, their grandparents may not have even been there, but they've got Palestinian blood. They could all return to Israel. After Israel and Palestine are both separate states, then they could return to what is the state of Israel and then become citizens. Well, guess what? You've destroyed Israel without ever firing a shot.
That's a demographic situation that Benjamin Netanyahu talks about, and that is the population shift is going to be in a situation where you could end up having the Israeli state, as Jordan just said, the state of Israel, implode through a population shift if you allow what's called the right of return, which Mahmoud Abbas has said must happen before anybody recognizes anything. So is it longer than warfare? Sure. It would take longer for them to take over. Does it get you the same end result? Absolutely. So what's the difference between the moderate and the terrorist? Patience. That's it. And now you've got Hamas in the mix, which shows you how dangerous this can be. Back to the phones we go.
Phil's calling in from California on line 2. Phil, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live.
Hi, Phil.
Hello, Mr. Sekulow, and hello, Jordan. I just want to make a quick comment. I just want to compliment the both of you, Jay and Jordan. God bless you very much for being out there for people like me who have the same sentiments as you do. I love you guys a lot, and I support you a whole lot. And Mr. Sekulow, I listened to you.
Call me Jay, first of all. My father's Mr. Sekulow. Go ahead.
I heard you on Sean Hannity's radio program debating I don't know what to call this individual.
The lawyer for Hamas is what I call him. That's who he is. He's the lawyer for Hamas, and he's very proud of it. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Jay, what really makes me sad is you have people like that live into this country. It's discouraging. But I just want.
You know what's what outraged me the most was he would never acknowledge the fact that Hamas's charter, I'm going to put it up on the screen again, calls for the destruction of Jews and the Zionist entity in Israel. That's what they call for. He doesn't dispute that, yet he represents them. I had a previous debate a couple weeks back with someone on Sean's radio broadcast where the discussion was she felt really sorry for the Hamas and she doesn't consider them a terrorist organization. I said, well, go ahead, and she's a Jewish woman, and she said, go ahead, and everybody that listens to this broadcast for any length of time knows that I'm also Jewish, Jew who believes that Jesus is the Messiah, but very Jewish in my outlook and very Jewish in my identity. And let me tell you this. I told that woman, if you're so convinced that Hamas is not a terrorist organization, go down the streets of Gaza, wear a sign that says, I am a Jewish woman and believe Israel has a right to exist, and let's see how long you live. Because we've represented Christians that have been killed in Gaza because they sold Bibles at a Christian bookstore. So I appreciate the call and I appreciate the encouragement, Phil, but we've got to fight on every level. We've got lawyers in Israel right now in our office in Jerusalem. We're working right here in Washington. Jordan and I have been hitting the airwaves. Jordan's written articles for the Washington Times, the Washington Post, Human Events, on and on it goes. We are going to defend Israel, and folks, we're going to have to defend Israel at the United Nations in September. I'm already working on that major game plan. But, Jordan, this is a battle for the survival of Israel, and we've got to fight back right now.
You know, and what Prime Minister Netanyahu said, I think, is right. We keep saying that the Muslim world hates us because of Israel. And he said, I don't think it's because of Israel. They hate you, and then they hate us because we're allies with the United States of America. You're the ones responsible, in their opinion, for the fight against terrorism. So they hate you, and Israel's allied with us. So, folks, understanding that mindset, stand with Israel now. We're Israel's best defenders. The Christian community in the United States, the largest group, the #1 group in the world, throughout Christians throughout the world. So call now and stand with Israel. Join this petition. 877-989-2255. That's 877-989-2255.
When you sign that petition, making sure there's not a divided Jerusalem, I'm also going to send you the export DVD. Let's stand with Israel. Say it with the United Jerusalem. 877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255. Back with more in a moment.
President Obama siding with the Palestinian Authority, turning his back on Israel. Unbelievable. President Obama calling Israel an occupying force, demanding that Israel revert to the 1967 borders, a move that would divide Jerusalem. What's worse, President Obama, by backing the Palestinian Authority, is backing Hamas, a terrorist organization that vows to eliminate Israel. This is not a pathway to peace. It's an assault against Israel, our most important ally. We're sending a message to President Obama. This anti-Israel tactic is unacceptable. Stand with the ACLJ in support of the nation of Israel and in opposition to President Obama's troubling new policy against Israel. Add your name to our petition now, and we'll send you 2 valuable resources: the Export DVD, a powerful look at the Middle East crisis, and a booklet on the growing threat of Sharia law. Tell President Obama it's time to stand with Israel. Call now, 1-877-989-2255 or online aclj.org.
Welcome back to the broadcast, everyone. Let me play for you a very special DVD we have called The Export. This gives you a sense of the work we're doing in Jerusalem and around the globe. Take a look. How significant is the conflict with radical Islam?
Radical Islam intends that all of us live under Sharia law. The enemy is radical Islam.
If Iran gets nuclear weapons, Saudi Arabia will, Egypt will, Turkey, perhaps others.
The moment the Iranians have nuclear weapons, they have a nuclear umbrella over their international terrorist capability.
That is a formula for insecurity.
And I'm telling you, target #1 is Israel. The Israelis cannot abide that. It is truly an existential threat.
Peace can reign only when everybody comes under the umbrella of Islam.
These 40,000 rockets and missiles on the border with Lebanon could, be sprung and fired against Israel.
The more we have nuclear proliferation in the world, the more the risks are that there will be the availability of nuclear devices, the lethality of which is mind-boggling.
On every September 11, they fire rockets into Israel. Why? To commemorate 9/11.
A proposal to build a mosque and Islamic cultural center near Ground Zero generating a lot of heat at a hearing in New York City. Opponents want to give landmark status to the 150-year-old building, which would essentially prevent the mosque and center from being built.
They don't want to just take this building and turn it into a mosque. They want a memorial. They want a monument.
A monument, a tower of triumph. That's what they want to build, called Cordoba.
Cordoba is the symbol of them conquering Christian land. I mean, that was not by accident.
They want America to be a Muslim nation.
This is a march of Sharia through our institutions. And what they're trying to do is see how far they can get before there's pushback. And as long as there's not pushback, they'll keep pushing.
If the mosque were allowed to go up and did go up, what symbol does that send?
We might as well just throw the Constitution away.
If we care about remaining the United States that I think we want to remain, we have to pay very close attention to this.
The war on terror is a war that has to be won every day.
Folks, this is the kind of work that's going on by the American Center for Law and Justice and our affiliates around the world, but we also want to take some of your phone calls. Let's go right to the phones.
Tom's calling from Florida on line 2. Tom, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live.
Hi, Tom.
Hi. I just wanted to call. I'm actually a Democrat, even though you probably don't hear from too many Democrats. But
oh, you'd be surprised. But go ahead. Go ahead. We do.
but I'm a born again Christian too, and I don't always agree with everything that you might have on your shows. But this really surprised me, and kind of I've wanted to write an email or something, but I figured the Secret Service would be after me if I wrote an email.
What you're concerned about that? What, as a Democrat that supported President Obama, you're upset about what, the decision with regard to Israel?
I just was surprised that he would. I mean, that's crazy. Why in the world is he?
Well, Tom, you're not the only one. By the way, some major backers of the president have now let it known publicly they are no longer supporting his policies. And by the way, I'm holding. And Tom, here's what you need to do: call your senators in Florida and tell them you're going to back this Senate concurrent resolution, which tells the president, no, we're not going to agree with your foreign policy on this situation, because that's the way to express yourself. But some major Democratic backers of the president are now pulling out because of this.
And I got to be very honest about it. I've been kind of hammering this point home. I'm glad to see that those Democrat members of Congress were standing and applauding Prime Minister Netanyahu, but we all warned people about President Obama's stance on Israel. Before he was president, he was already very pro-Palestinian and cast his lot with that group more throughout the world, especially in Europe. And so it wasn't shocking to us that President Obama has become the most anti-Israel president in U.S. history. And it shouldn't be shocking to those Democrat senators and congressmen who know him very well. So if they are really upset about this, they better keep raising their voices, because standing up and applauding the prime minister from Israel for one day isn't going to change people's concerns about the leader. Yes, he's our president. He's also the highest-ranking Democrat official. He's the highest-ranking member of their party, and they nominated him.
Let me play a little bit. Not the full soundbite, but this is Harry Reid, again, at AIPAC, disagreeing with the president. Soundbite number 7. I'll come in after a moment.
The place where negotiating will happen must be at the negotiating table and nowhere else. These negotiations will not happen. Their terms will not be set through speeches or in the streets or in the media. No one should set premature parameters about borders, about building, or about anything else.
Here's what's fascinating about this. This is Harry Reid, the Senate leader. He is, of course, a Democrat. He said this: no one should set premature parameters about borders, about building, or anything else. Well, who was it that set premature parameters? It was the President of the United States, Barack Obama. His own party is rejecting this, folks. You could be part of history right now, and I want to encourage you to do something. When you go back to those 67 borders, that means no United Jerusalem. That means the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall, the Temple Mount, all back into Hamas control, which means you'll never see it. Okay? The Garden Tomb, gone. You think they're going to let you there? No. So here's what we need to do. Right now, let's fight back and fight back aggressively. Here is the number for you to sign on to this petition, disagreeing with the president, calling for a united Jerusalem, saying no to negotiations with Hamas, and no to the 67 borders. You stand firm, and I'm going to send you this DVD, the export, and the booklet on Sharia law. 877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255 or aclj.org. And as you go to your phones, let me play for you the double talking soundbite here, and then let Jordan comment on this. Play number 2.
And Jerusalem will remain the capital of Israel, and it must remain undivided.
That was 2008. Now what happens in 2011? We want to return to the 67 borders. So, Jordan, what happens to the united Jerusalem undivided?
You know, it's unbelievable how President Obama has been playing with this and trying to dance around it. And now you've got this is an incredible statement. Top Mahmoud Abbas aide. So this is the moderate side. This is the people that get $500 million a year of your taxpayer dollars. Tayeb Abdel Rahim. We believe that George Washington and Abraham Lincoln would never be received in such a way if they were to come back to life. Congress has caused damage to the U.S. That was in response to the standing ovations that Prime Minister Netanyahu received. So it's a threat. Standing with Israel is a threat from the people that we give money to. That statement alone means we should revoke their funds today and shut down their schools and stop the food aid and stop training their security forces. Those Palestinian authorities want to get a little taste of their own medicine. Revoke the U.S. funding, and let's see what Hamas does with them when they take over the West Bank.
Another official from from Fatah, this is again the moderates. We must set fire to the area as they did in Egypt. We must act against the Israeli enemy. This is coming from the moderates, folks. And you know who's funding these moderates, as Jordan just said? You and me. So let's stop funding them right now. Part of this petition says no more money to the Palestinian Authority until they recognize Israel as a Jewish state with a right to exist, which they're not going to do. 877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255 or aclj.org.
Sydney's calling from California on line 5. Sydney, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live.
Hi, Sydney.
God bless you guys. You know, I think President Obama's problem is because he hasn't chosen which faith he wants to stand by, and that is the roots of that is because he doesn't recognize there's a certain righteousness that's desired in Christianity.
Yeah, that's because he's been trained by these guys. I mean, his education was these pro-Palestinian groups. That's who's been educating him.
Yeah, I actually do think he knows which side he's chosen, Sydney, and I understand, yeah, he's definitely playing publicly to you like, oh, I didn't really mean to offend Israel. But the truth is, that speech he gave last week, if he didn't receive the criticism that came from the American people, there would have been no second speech to AIPAC that changed anything. That's the real President Obama. The real President Obama is more pro-Palestinian and the most anti-Israel president in history. There's nothing more to say about it.
All right, folks, there's something to say. You can say something about it right now. I want to encourage you, folks, as we close this broadcast out. You go to your phones right this moment. You sign on to this petition supporting Israel. No more taxpayer dollars to Hamas. No divided Jerusalem. No return to the 67 borders. You speak out. I'm going to send you the export DVD. Everybody, go to your phones right now if you've not signed on to this petition, because this could be it at the end of this week, folks. We've got to get this to the Israeli government officials and to the White House. 877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255. You can also go to aclj.org. Sign in online. Follow Jordan, by the way, on twitter.com/Jordan Sekulow with folks. You go to your phones right now and you sign on to this petition. Speak out and speak out for Israel. 877-989-2255. Let's tell those Israeli officials we're with them. 877-989-2255 or aclj.org. That's 877-989-2255.
How significant is the conflict with radical Islam?
Radical Islam intends that all of us live under Sharia law. The enemy is radical Islam.
If Iran gets nuclear weapons, Saudi Arabia will, Egypt will, Turkey, perhaps others. 5 to 10 years you could have a multipolar nuclear Middle East with half a dozen countries with nuclear weapons. That is a formula for insecurity.
President Obama siding with the Palestinian Authority, turning his back on Israel. Unbelievable. President Obama calling Israel an occupying force, demanding that Israel revert to the 1967 borders, a move that would divide Jerusalem. What's worse, President Obama, by backing the Palestinian Authority, is backing Hamas, a terrorist organization that vows to eliminate Israel. This is not a pathway to peace, it's an assault against Israel, our most important ally. We're sending a message to President Obama. This anti-Israel tactic is unacceptable. Stand with the ACLJ in support of the nation of Israel and in opposition to President Obama's troubling new policy against Israel. Add your name to our petition now, and we'll send you 2 valuable resources: the Export DVD, a powerful look at the Middle East crisis, and a booklet on the growing threat of Sharia law. Tell President Obama it's time to stand with Israel. Call now, 1-877-989-2255 or online aclj.org.